No, cut, so I gotta stick in the back. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, for those who have just moved back here, there's a malt box on the right, and there's a malt box on the left. And it's mic level.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. You're fine.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, they can
Well, this looks fabulous. I'm glad you're here. Thank you all very much. I'm Tammy Bruce, the spokesperson for the U.S. State Department. It's lovely to see you here, everyone in the back, everyone watching on streaming or television or however you're seeing us. Thank you and welcome aboard. Statement before we proceed here. Good afternoon, of course. It is an honor to join you today for my first briefing at the State Department. My commitment to you and to the American people will always be to speak directly and clearly about the policies and priorities of our country's lead diplomat, Secretary Marco Rubio, and the great men and women who serve the U.S. Department of State. To begin, I would like to acknowledge that after Secretary Rubio was confirmed in a historic bipartisan vote, he promised to deliver a foreign policy under President Trump's vision and leadership that would make America stronger, safer, and more prosperous. Under President Trump's administration, the State Department puts America first as well. Peace through strength is back, and our North Star is the pursuit of peace. As Secretary Rubio says, peace is not a noun, it is an action. And the Secretary has been taking action. It started on day one. Secretary Rubio got straight to work issuing common sense policies that returned the State Department to the basics of diplomacy. We are rewarding performance based on initiative, skill, and hard work, and we are ensuring every dollar we spend advances our national interests. During the Secretary's first international trip to Central America and the Caribbean, he reaffirmed our commitment to the region where we live. He emphasized the importance of this relationship, highlighting our shared challenges and our shared opportunities. Already, the Secretary has achieved concrete deliverables to combat transnational crime, advance the cause of enduring peace, and counter the malign influence of the Chinese Communist Party. At the United Nations, U.S. leadership led the Security Council, passing a historic resolution seeking to end the Russia-Ukraine war. Implementing President Trump's executive orders, the Secretary designated 8 cartels and other transnational organizations as terrorists. The Houthis have been designated as a foreign terrorist organization, and their members are facing sanctions. And the Iranian regime is again under maximum pressure. And further in line with the President's promise to keep America safe, Mohammed Sharifullah was detained in Pakistan for the tragic Abbey Gate terrorist attack that took the lives of 13 service members of our country. He has been extradited to the United States to face swift justice. The Secretary's highest priority is the safety and security of the American people. Earlier today, the Department hosted a ceremony to raise the hostage and wrongful detainee flag. The flag symbolizes the United States' commitment to Americans unjustly held overseas, and it will fly in front of the State Department through March 9th, which is the second U.S. hostage and wrongful detainee day. This administration has worked tirelessly to bring unjustly home and to secure the release of all the hostages held by Hamas. And we will continue to do the critical work to accomplish this goal. During this historic joint event, the other night, President Trump made clear that the United States is advancing our national interests to ensure the 21st century is an American-led century. America is back. I'm honored to stand here before you and to deliver this information for the American people, which they deserve to hear from their State Department. As someone who has served over, well, a long time in media, I understand firsthand that a free press is vital to our democracy. I look forward to engaging on our U.S. foreign policy priorities for the benefit of the American people. And also just want to say a thank you to the civil service workers, the foreign service workers, the staff of this department. As someone who's been looking out from the outside into government and seeing always the problems, it has been a remarkable experience to work with these individuals in this department, but throughout the Department of State. It has been an experience for me that has changed my point of view on many different issues. And I want to thank all of them who made it possible for me to stand here today. This has been literally a team effort. It remains a team effort for people who love this country and serve her every day. And so there's something I never thought I would say, except screaming at the screen at this gentleman sitting here. Just a remarkable illustration of how life changes and has surprises for us. Matt Lee from the Associated Press. I'm going to also ask you, when asking a question, we have a number of cameras in the back. People are watching through streaming at state.gov, our social media accounts as well, and a variety of different ways. Announce your name if you could and your outlet. That would be terrific. Matt Lee, I'll announce for you because you're so shy with the Associated Press. Sir, what can I tell you?
Well, first of all, thank you for your opening remarks there. And I would also say congratulations, because for those of us who were around back in the beginning of the first Trump administration, the first State Department briefing in 2017 was on March 7th. So you have beaten that by 1 day. I don't know if you're aware. No.
know.
You know, that's,
all right.
So anyway, so you got that. You have a record already.
Okay, thank you.
So anyway, yes, thank you very much for your commitment to, speaking to us and being open and transparent. I just want to say before I begin, and I have a very brief question, but before we begin, that I think everybody in this room understands that elections have consequences. Everybody in this room understands that the President of the United States sets the agenda for foreign policy, and so the questions that you will get today and going forward are all aimed at trying to find out what that policy is, one, and then how the State Department is actually implementing it. So
sure.
I hope in that, with that we can go forward. So the first thing, so my question is about the AID, sure. USAID. So on January 20th, the entire Function 150 account of the federal budget, which is all of the State Department and USAID, including operations, salaries, was roughly about 1% of the budget. What's your understanding of where that percentage is today?
Well, what I can tell you is President Trump was elected to change the status quo. Part of what has initiated this dynamic that we've all watched play out is what's it been? I think it's been 6 weeks. Is an effort to deal with waste, fraud, and abuse. This began with a simple inquiry of USAID to look at their books, to look and inquire, and they refused. They said, we're an autonomous organization, you have no right to come in. The intention was not to do it in a manner that you've been watching unfold. It began because there was no cooperation at the beginning. And the inquiry, of course, was because of the debt, the nature of being $2 trillion, that it was an unsustainable and remains an unsustainable way of running anything, a household or a government. There's a point where you have to look up and say, we need to see at least what's happening. So this has been a pause, a 90-day pause, we shouldn't forget that, to look at the nature of how the taxpayer money has been spent and if it was being used in the proper way for the things that we've allotted it for. And that began. It was certainly in a manner that was not planned on, but we needed to do it. It was something that was, of course, important to accomplish the nature of dealing with, is there fraud, is there abuse, is there waste, how can we fix the system so that taxpayer dollars are being used properly. And in the process, of course, we've looked through some of these issues. You heard at the joint session of Congress addressed by the President, some of the remarkable programs that we were paying for around the world, millions of dollars. Clearly, change has had to be made. And that's what we're doing right now. There's change not only when it comes to what's being funded, but also how the bureaucracy works, and if a bureaucracy the size that it was needed to exist in the way that it exists. All of this review is important. At the same time, within a review like this, because you're looking at whether or not there's an efficiency in the way money is spent, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be doing foreign aid. It's a matter of how are we going to be doing the aid, and if it is effective, and if it is efficient, and if it achieves the goals that we want that make America safe, more prosperous, more secure. And there's nothing that's deviated from that.
Okay, but
On the issue of the numbers, you asked about numbers. Clearly, this is a rapid dynamic. This is a process that is an internal process that involves an entire host of decisions that are being made over a number of different bureaus and dynamics that I'm not a part of. We see what the results are. We have been getting the notifications about the nature of the numbers involved, but I can't go into specifics on this day or how they might even be tomorrow.
Okay. Well,
yes.
the reason that I pushed on the
Yes.
percentage number was because one of the first fact sheets that this department put out, and I know that you probably didn't have much of anything to do with it, but it was about.
Don't underestimate me. Not yet.
Well, it was on January 29th, and it was about the executive order on. Sure. And it said in there, even setting aside generous support for Ukraine over the past several years, the U.S. is spending roughly $70 billion in foreign aid annually. Well, that was just not correct. And several hours later, after myself and other people pointed this out,
yes.
It was changed, but it wasn't sent out again. It was just changed online. But it was changed to $40 billion instead of 70.
Right.
And I just want to know, so the people who put this together, and I don't know who they were, but that's a $30 billion
yes.
mistake. Is
yes.
that the kind of accounting that?
No, it's not. And I think, and can speak on behalf certainly of my department and of this entire department and the speed with which some of these things are happening, that mistakes are corrected. There was one.
Okay.
It was corrected, and that's certainly not going to happen again. That's what I can okay. pledge to you. Okay. I do know, and as everyone learned on that day, that the data matters, which is why I'm not going to stand here and guess, that the facts of the matter, and we're determined, I am determined in this role. This is not just a first day for me, but also for the department to see the nature as a reminder of what you're all interested in and what we have to speak to. And I appreciate that. But yeah, it's everything's a learning curve.
Yes.
But at that point, of course, that's a significant difference. And let's just say it's not going to happen again. Thank you, sir. Yes, Rich.
Hi, Tammy.
Fox News. We all know that, right?
Yes. Yeah, you have to introduce yourself.
So Rich Edson with Fox News.
Right.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy, on this USAID investigation, Peter Morocco has been on Capitol Hill over the past couple of days, briefing members of Congress and updating them on this, where he told them that they have uncovered waste, fraud, and abuse to a level that would require referrals to the Department of Justice for investigation. Can you provide any specific examples of illegal wrongdoing, or what the department believes is illegal wrongdoing at USAID? Well,
obviously, and this is my first chance to say what I can't comment on, which is, in general, certainly any possible litigation, the nature of negotiations or contemplations regarding action that the government might take, certainly not only because I've not been in the room, but it's because you've got, whether it's diplomatic conversations or issues of determining what we might do and what might not do. It also goes into hypotheticals. So no, I can't answer that. What I can say, again, is that the level of what we've discovered at USAID is troubling enough to where this is the kind of conversation that is perhaps going to have to be had by the American people and even perhaps Congress. But I think at this point, when we're looking at this kind of an issue that we see through our existing investigations and inquiries, that we've clearly got some problems. And so we're determined to correct those problems. Where it ends up is going to be, of course, something we'll see in the future, but that's not something I've been involved in.
So a conversation with the American people in Congress, how about with the Department of Justice?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. But it is, the seriousness with which this is being addressed is something the American people should be happy about. It is why President Trump was elected, was to take action on the things that he campaigned on, as many people did as well. We knew something was wrong and it had to change. And this is up to, of course, to the people who are doing the investigations, whether or not any of that actually manifests. All right. Yes, Sean.
Thank you, and welcome to the podium.
Thank you.
Sean Tandon with AFP. Can I switch the topic to the Middle East? The situation.
Let me ask though.
US.
Any other questions on the USAID situation? A bunch of hands. I'm shocked. All right, we'll get back to you when we move into the Middle East. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Daphne Saladakis with Reuters.
Hi there.
You said that this is a pause, but we got answers from the State Department saying they've already cut 92% of the awards worth $54 billion. Is there any chance of those coming back? And that made it seem like the review was done. Is it done, or is the review still continuing?
Well, when you have a review, it is to assess what's happening in front of you, and then decisions are going to be made, right? So you've got a review. It's 90 days to make an assessment within that framework of what works and what doesn't work. If there were programs and if they've been cut, the answer would be is that they did not serve either American interests or make us safer, more secure, or more prosperous. So those decisions are going to be made. Clearly, some have been in the process of the review.
And are they final, and is the review complete?
Well, I think that each case may be different, but we do know that actions have been taken based on the standards that we set, that the Secretary of State has set, and we're moving forward. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Tammy. Jennifer Hansler with CNN. We've heard from groups saying that they had contracts for work that had been granted waivers by the Secretary because they were life-saving activities that were then given termination notices for the funding for those programs. Is there a review to see if these can be turned back on, and how many of these life-saving programs have been cut under these terminations?
Right. Just as a reminder, that part of what was a blanket waiver in this process, in the review, was, of course, we will continue to fund and continue to act on the importance of money that goes to life-saving work. Many of those programs, which again the President articulated during his address to Congress the other night, certainly did not meet that standard. So we have that blanket waiver dynamic. There are anecdotes of certain issues. We do know that if there's been a problem, that it is reversed. The Secretary is directly involved in this process of assessing the nature of what's happening and who's getting these funds. There is also a process for people to reach into the State Department to make the difference, to apply for a specific waiver, or to indicate if there's an issue and make their case for these situations. And I know the Secretary cares about the nature of foreign aid. It is something that has been, he's spoken about for years throughout also his tenure as a senator. And he is, I have to say, I did not know him well when I started in this position. And his commitment to the country and his personal involvement has been heartening. And I'm sure that in this kind of a dynamic, we've had some frameworks that have been arranged where people can get into the State Department, indicate if there's been an issue, and then action can be taken on those.
And do you have
Yes,
any
sir.
update on payments?
But yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Kamala Schick from CBS.
Hi there.
To follow up one thing on Jenny's question. Will we see a full list of the grants and the programs that have been cut or that will be cut in this 90-day review? You mentioned that there should be a conversation with the American people.
Of course.
And that I assume that means it will be something that will be transparent for people to see the list of the programs that have been cut. And then just on related to USAID, there's reporting from Reuters that more than 700 diplomats have signed a letter that is destined to go to the dissent cable for this department, expressing their concern about the dismantling, of USAID, and the fear that this is undermining U.S. leadership abroad and helping create a power vacuum for the likes of China and Russia to exploit. Do you have a comment?
Your question's important because it is about the list and what's been cut and what has been kept, and that is something that I want before I presume, because that's something I've learned to not do in this particular role, is to make sure that I have the right answer for you. So I'm going to make sure that we go back and this is also for me, it's important because I think many Americans have questions about the nature of the details of what's happening. But it is the foreign policy of the world, obviously, clearly major decisions being made. And my goal is to make sure as we can so that there's a serious ability to kind of own the information I'm saying to you. Those are going to be times when I have to come back to you, and this is one of those times. But it's a good question, and yes, I'd like to get that for you.
And on the diplomats with the dissent cable?
You know, in that regard, you know, we have a dissent cable framework that we're very proud of. That is important. And from what I've learned is that that did not actually go out in that framework, but also we will not discuss those if there is internal communications or the nature of something like that transpiring. All right. So done with USAID and our Middle East now, Sean?
Sure, let me kick it off. Could I ask you about there's a pressure, of course, on Hamas to extend the ceasefire deal. Israel on Sunday said that it's cutting off humanitarian assistance going into Gaza as a way of pressure. The European countries, the European allies of the United States have criticized this, saying that the situation, in their words, is quite catastrophic in Gaza. Does the United States support the holding of food and other assistance at this point as a way to achieve these aims?
Well, what we've said before, and has been the case before, is that aid can only be delivered in a safe framework. So as long as it is something that is unsafe, or we can't guarantee the safety of something moving in, that is going to be stopped. It is not a withholding, but it certainly it's a reflection of the framework of the situation on the ground, and that continues. In the meantime, I think that it is also very clear, and this is the president certainly has been tweeting about certain situations with Hamas and the nature of what was expected and has been repeated continually, that all the hostages have got to be released. They need to be released now. The bodies they are holding, everything, everyone needs to be released. And without doing that, there is no path forward. Secretary Rubio has made clear that as long as Hamas exists in that area, with a gun, without a gun, as long as they are a factor in Gaza and exist, there is no way forward. It is an impossible situation. It is monsters who are controlling and destroying Gazan lives and the lives of people around the region. It remains an extraordinary dynamic where this administration has made clear, as has Secretary Rubio, that we have a framework where it has gone, it's over and over and over again. There's been nothing new. It's wash, rinse, and repeat, back and forth for generations. And the approach now in this dynamic is that it has to be a new approach. And that is what President Trump has said from the beginning, that we've got to think differently. We've got to think differently about how things proceed in the region. And this is finally, after this idea, the prompting to think differently, there are some different and new ideas. But one thing stays the same and is unmovable here, and it is the existence of Hamas as a factor on the ground in that region. It will be impossible to continue. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Saeed Erakat. I'm from Al-Quds newspaper.
I've heard a little bit about you, and we've had some conversations. It's great to see you here, sir.
Good to see you behind the podium. I have two quick follow-ups, basically, to Gaza. The president said yesterday, well, he had strong words for Gaza, for Hamas, and for the people of Gaza. Now, at the same time, we heard about the meeting that took place between Mr. Bowler and some senior Hamas officials and so on, which gave people maybe, hope that there's going to be movement towards the phase two of this deal that was struck back on January 15. My question to you, how do you reconcile the two? And also follow up to that, so I don't have to come back to you again, is also on Mr. Witkoff's statement and what he has been saying.
The two can be combined.
Whether we have an idea as to when he's going to be going back to the region. Thank you.
Well, first of all, if you have a conversation with someone, it's not a negotiation. It's not irreconcilable. It is the conveyance of the American position in a different way. Nothing was different. Nothing was conveyed differently. There was no change of position. It was the conveyance of the existing American position about Hamas and how it cannot exist in Gaza. Now, whether it is through a tweet or a diplomatic cable or on television or through envoys or in a meeting, that message can be conveyed. And it's, I think that that's what's important for the American people to realize, is that the steps for peace that need to be taken in any country will be taken, and especially in making sure that a bloodthirsty group like Hamas understands that our message is not fluid. Yes, Andrea Mitchell.
Thank
Great
you
to
so
see you.
much. Change of subject to Ukraine.
Oh, wait, well, okay, yes, we'll go to you. The first, we'll take a couple more on Gaza. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Nadia Bilbesi with Al Arabiya.
Nadia, yes, nice to see you.
Department. Good to see you too. A couple of questions. Number one, the secretary said he's open to the Egyptian plan. It's been endorsed by the Muslim and Arab countries. What's your position on that? Was basically, in a nutshell, saying that Gazans can stay, they can rebuild it with Arab money and with Palestinians' leadership. And second, the administration issued many ultimatums to the Hamas before. What's the difference this time? And the secretary echoed what the president said on Gazans themselves. He said Gazans will await them a beautiful future, but if hostages are held, they're all dead. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, we know that the president, in his comments about a new way forward, et cetera, was an invitation for new ideas. And that seemed to have spurred some new ideas. But we also know that they have not really been seen as being adequate for the nature of what it is that we've been asking for. So it's always, I think that, especially from the words from the president himself, and I want to get his remarks especially for you, because these are, this is, everybody clearly wants this to change. I think that that's obvious, especially with Egypt stepping up and handling it as they have. But then it's about what are the details, what's going to end, what's going to be on the ground. And hold on one second here. The issue of my notes, which might have to be resolved for the next briefing. Hold on. All right.
The iPad does not solve all problems.
Well, I'm a paper person, as you might be as well. Well, let me just continue, though, on that manner, is that the Arab deal, as it's noted, is that it does not fulfill the requirements, the nature of what President Trump was asking for. But it was not, but it was the welcomed effort of continuing to address this clearly has to continue. So we understand that it's obviously that region and everyone is interested, has a stake in this, to say the least. And the goal is, though, as it has always been, it's very simple, is for peace in that region and to not have it continue to return as a constant issue. And I think we have a very good chance at accomplishing that this time with the leadership and an articulated leadership regarding what's acceptable and what is not. So these conversations clearly will have to continue. We know we've got partners clearly in the region, and Israel understands that as well. And this is what the world wants, not only in this conflict, but other conflicts. And no one wins. No one is winning here in this framework. And so, regarding the Arab solution, the Arab deal via Egypt, that what I have for you right now is that it does not meet the expectations. And so we'll have one more. Yes, sir, in the back.
Yeah, Ryan Grimm, Dropsite News. There's been some reporting, our outlet, Israeli press here, some in the American press, that there was a side letter that the Biden administration signed or sent to Israel as part of the ceasefire negotiations that effectively said, okay, this is the deal on paper. We're going to move from phase one to phase two.
Can I save you some time in your life? I'm not going to comment on something that happened prior to this administration or to things that have been heard or the idea of hypotheticals or rumored issues and letters and what rumored plans were. That is a non-starter.
Well,
so if you have another thing you want to ask, let's do it.
I do have one other thing. The
Yes,
question
sir.
would be, would a letter like that still be in force under the Trump administration?
From one hypothetical to another. Clearly,
Okay.
I can't answer that,
All right,
but thank
so-
you, sir. In the back. Yes, sir, behind you.
Thank you very much, Tammy. Jalil Afidi from the Frontier.
Hello, sir. Nice to meet you.
First, I want to say a quick thank you to the president. I have not seen any journalist saying thank you to him in 2020 during the corona days. I was one of the affectees as well who spent many months in the hospital. and the
Well, I'm glad
stimulus
you're here.
checks were amazing, and many journalists took advantage of it. My first question is, did anybody from the U.S. administration say thank you to Pakistan on official level regarding this new arrest? And second, is the president aware that the most popular leader of Pakistan, Imran Khan, has been in jail now for the last 3 years, and lots of atrocities has happened, but is the president at all interested in paying a little attention to Pakistan beside this?
Well, I will answer that, noting that in his address to Congress, the president announced the arrest of an ISIS-K operative and planner responsible for the deaths, as I mentioned earlier today, of the 13 brave American service members and over 160 Afghans at Abbey Gate, that he is now in custody. And we extend our gratitude to the government of Pakistan. We do, for their partnership in bringing Mohammed Sharifullah to justice. We would also now refer you, for those who want more information, to the Department of Justice for further information regarding his case. We have, regarding Pakistan and the nature of our relationship, we have a common interest, obviously, in fighting terrorism. And the arrest of this terrorist also illustrated that U.S.-Pakistan cooperation on counterterrorism remains vitally important. So thank you, sir. All right, so now, Andrea, we'll move on here.
Thank you very much, and thank you and welcome. And I think all of us are very grateful that the briefings are starting and that you were
Good.
this
I
role.
hope to. I won't always necessarily. I hope my goal is to make you all happy. Of course, that will be impossible. And I appreciate your patience with me today, as I'm learning clearly the depth. This room, we've got an overflow room. We have. I don't want to say any numbers. I've just remember, I pledge not to give you numbers. But it's a remarkable thing. The American people care about foreign policy. They care about national policy, and your career in particular has kind of taught Americans that this information is interesting, it's usable, it's important, and so it's a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you, and just thank you for your commitment to this.
Yes.
On Ukraine, does the Zelensky letter, which includes an apology and various commitments to peace, which were praised by Mr. Witkoff at the White House today, does that letter meet the standard to the Secretary that these talks can proceed? And will the Secretary be attending the talks that are now contemplated next week in Saudi Arabia? And if you could give us any reaction to the Russian attack on a hotel today, where American aid workers did escape, but at least 4 people that we know of were killed.
Right.
If I could just also throw in.
All right, a third one.
Does the letter of apology solve some of the issues to the extent that the Secretary believes intelligence and the weapons pipeline and intelligence sharing could be restored?
Well, that's a road a bit too far. We will not discuss issues of intelligence or diplomatic agreements or the sharing of information. That I will not discuss. But from the start, after the Friday situation with President Zelensky, and Secretary Rubio was in the room, it was a surprise that his behavior took a turn, and in the Oval Office. And it was clear, as the president had stated publicly, that he was not ready for peace, that there was one thing that he should not do, and that was, damage the nature of what was transpiring there, because we want to help him. We want to help Ukraine. We have been the biggest supporters of Ukraine in this conflict than anyone else in the world. We have made it very clear from the start how we feel about this situation. But even after that, even that same night and continuing on, there was an open door that he wasn't ready for peace. If he becomes ready for peace, he can come back to the table. It was certainly not something that eliminated the potential to continue. But what it did do was highlight, and clearly with the follow-up message from President Zelensky. There was an awareness that, as he said, it did not go as planned, right? It was not a situation that was good or helpful, and as I'm paraphrasing here, and clearly indicated that he was ready to come back. I have not spoken in the last few hours with the Secretary, but I do know that his posture has been the same, is that we have a goal. And we see what's happening. We want to make sure that certainly the president understood what was happening, that this door was still unlocked, that he could return as we were looking at the nature of what was transpiring in Ukraine, that it's a stalemate. The secretary has called it a meat grinder. Hundreds of thousands of people dead, and the carnage not stopping. It's a stalemate that where both parties have to be brought to the table to end it. We also have terrific success, as I mentioned in my opening, at the UN. The first time since the beginning of this conflict, a 3-paragraph statement about ending the conflict passed without opposition in the Security Council, which is a statement from those members, but also from the UN in general. It appears with that note that President Zelensky understands what's at stake, that we are here to help him, that there is one person who can bring those parties to the table, and it is President Donald Trump. The Secretary has understood that from the beginning. This is a united understanding that this has got to end, and these are men who understand what America can do to help that come to an end. And I would believe, with what has been said before, that in fact, if the President and the Secretary believe that President Zelensky is serious and that we can move forward, they have stated, in fact, that we would. So we look forward to that.
And Saudi Arabia?
What about Saudi Arabia?
Is it contemplated that the Secretary would be attending?
I cannot comment, certainly, on issues that either have been discussed in a diplomatic framework or arrangements that might be implemented regarding these kinds of diplomatic negotiations or efforts. So I'm sorry, but I can't do that. All right, yes, sir, in the back.
Tom Bateman from the BBC. Thank you for starting the briefings again. On the issue of European peacekeepers, which the British and French have both said they're prepared to put into Ukraine under the president's plans, we heard from Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, today, who said that this would mean direct, official and unconcealed involvement by NATO countries in a war against the Russian Federation. There is no room for compromise, and this is an overtly hostile aim. Do you have any concerns about that?
Well, I don't comment on remarks by leaders or foreign ministers of other countries. I'm here to represent the Department of State and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. What I think the people of the world should note is the choices that are made by Secretary Rubio, by President Trump, and the actions that we take to implement our commitment to peace. Yes, ma'am, in the back. In the pink. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tammy. I'm Jenny back with the USA Journal, Korea. I have two questions. First question, President Trump pointed out in his State of the Union address that South Korea has imposed tariffs 4 times higher. What measures will the United States take to resolve the tariff issue with South Korea? Second question. Last week, the North Korean Workers' Party secretary visited Russia and met with President Putin to upgrade the level of the Russia and North Korea alliance. Does the United States believe that the North Korean troops should withdraw from Russia to end the war between Russia and Ukraine?
Well,
thank you.
Yes, thank you. I really can't remark on issues of the North Korean relationship with Russia at this point, or that particular regional effort or action that may have occurred. So that's not something I can remark on right now. I certainly, for both of your questions, will will go back and talk to the Secretary, mention to him, as I have and as I've pledged to many of you who I met earlier in our bullpen here, that part of my goal is to make sure that not only do I have a good broader view of what interests all of you, but to make sure that the Secretary knows as well. I think that that's part of what is important to our communications with you. Besides what we can and cannot share, it is to make sure that we know where your interests are also. All right, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. Congratulations and thanks for doing this. At the opening remarks, you talked about Iran is under the maximum pressure. So I have a question related to that.
And I'm sorry, what is your outlet?
Yeah, my name is Dr. Koda. I'm working for Rudaw Media Network. It's a Kurdish TV.
All righty.
So
maximum pressure.
Yeah, Iraqi sanctions waiver for Iran gas imports expires on March 8th, which is the day after tomorrow. Have you renewed this sanctions waiver, or do you intend to renew that sanctions waiver for 120 more days? And I have the second question. Do you want me to ask now or after you?
Well, let me answer that question, because I see my staff standing up by the pillar, because I don't tend to keep track of certain things, but like time. But here's what I can tell you. The Iraq sanctions waiver, as you've noted, for Iran gas imports expires on the 8th. And we have, at this point, as you might imagine, we have nothing to announce with regards to the current electricity waiver that expires on the 8th. In line with National Security Presidential Memorandum Number 2, we are reviewing all existing sanctions waivers that provide Iran any degree of economic or financial relief. And we are urging the Iraqi government to eliminate its dependence on Iranian sources of energy as soon as possible and welcome the Iraqi Prime Minister's commitment to achieve energy independence. Hopefully, the United States is leading the way when it comes to that kind of an approach.
My second question.
All right, are we wrapping up here? I think we are. We will do this again on Tuesday, unless circumstances change that.
One last in Africa, please.
Someone wants one last. See, this is going to happen. It's like
no,
one last.
In Africa.
All right, hold on.
One last in Africa. Thank you.
Yes, Africa. Let's do it. Thank you. We have a lot of interests in that continent, so thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. So, thank you.
Yes.
My name is Hariana Veras, and I'm with TPA. Recently, I asked President Trump about his interest in joining the effort of the president of Angola, President João Lourenço, who is mediating the conflict between DRC and Rwanda, if he would be interested to join the efforts of Angola to bring peace to DRC. He said that the situation in the DRC is a very serious situation. But we have also seen that in this first 100 days of President Trump, he's making some movement. He imposed sanctions on the people that are directly involved on the conflict in DRC, and also Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He spoke with the foreign minister of Angola and also President Tshisekedi of Congo.
Correct.
Is there any plan, or can we expect something more in terms of action from the United States to join Angolan's effort to bring peace to the DRC? Because every day people are dying, and we have seen how eager President Trump wants to bring peace in many regions.
That is correct.
Not only between Russia and Ukraine, but also he's showing interest to bring peace in other regions. Is the Democratic Republic of the Congo one of the countries that this administration will do something to bring peace?
Well, I can tell you, and this is, I think, a good way to end the briefing today, just as a reminder, yes, of the global commitment that this administration has, but that Senator, why do I keep doing that? He's the Secretary. He's the Secretary of State. That the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has in the world. I can tell you that we stand in firm support of the Congolese people and of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC. I can say that in his calls with the two presidents, the Secretary urged an immediate ceasefire in the region, accountability for human rights abuses and violations, and for all parties to respect sovereignty and territorial integrity. We expect to see leaders return to the Angolan-led Luanda process and the Nairobi process and take action to resolve the conflict. Though we are aware of this, He has communicated this. He's engaged with leaders in the region on this as well. And we remain diplomatically engaged. That is going to continue. It will not soften or end. And I appreciate you being here because this is very important and it's a big story. Might not get as much coverage in the media, but there's a lot of problems here in the world, and the Secretary is committed to solving them, as is the President. So it is a team and a whole of government understanding that our world here at home needs to change and reform, and the way that the world is unfolding now with its conflicts, that needs to reform as well. So the DRC, thank you. All right, everyone, thank you very much. I'll see you on Tuesday as well. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Appreciate it.